The fraud and corruption charges against crime intelligence boss Lieutenant-General Dumisani Khumalo and 6 other senior crime intelligence officials have now been formally withdrawn. The case centered on the appointment of Brigadier Dineo Mukwege to a senior position within crime intelligence. The Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, or IDAC, had alleged that Mukwege was not properly qualified and that the recruitment process had been manipulated. But the case came under increasing scrutiny, including at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, where questions were raised about this investigation and the evidence underpinning the prosecution. The NPA's Andy Mutibi ordered the withdrawal of the charges after a review and has also said the matter cannot be re-enrolled without his express written approval. Khumalo had welcomed the decision, saying the withdrawal confirms the truth that he remains committed to serving the people. To get reaction right now from the other side of this case, we're joined by Sihle Hlongwane, who's the lawyer for Lieutenant-General Dumisani Khumalo. Mr. Hlongwane, a big pleasure to have you on the program this afternoon. Firstly, the charges have now formally been withdrawn, from what we understand. What does this moment mean for Lieutenant-General Khumalo personally, after more than a year of facing these allegations?
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Suhume, as well as the viewers of SABC. Well, just like as my client said on Friday, that they are happy that the charges are withdrawn, but that is not the end. In fact, it is the beginning of the end. There must still be processes to obviously then hold the people that were involved in this entire saga, which led to their investigation and eventual arrest, accountable. So I think it all starts now. The end starts now.
To take from your words and Khumalo's words, it's not the end. And to be precise, does the withdrawal actually mean the NPA concluded that there was insufficient evidence to even proceed with this prosecution? Or is there another reason that the charges were dropped?
Well, it's not even a question of whether was there any evidence. What you would have noted from the Madlanga Commission, the investigations were unlawful to begin with, let alone the decision to prosecute and subsequently arrest them. If you say evidence was insufficient, it means there is some form of wrongdoing on the part of our clients. It's just that the evidence at the disposal of the state would not have been sufficient to obtain a prosecution. In this instance, the contrary must be said. The investigation was unlawful, it was unauthorized, and what follows thereafter is, as the saying go, fruits of a poisonous tree.
Yeah. Interesting for me is that the NDPP has indicated that the matter cannot be re-enrolled or a fresh decision to prosecute taken without his express written approval. How significant is this condition for your client?
Well, we did canvass that point because we raised questions with the office of the NDPP. What does it mean to say the charges are provisionally withdrawn? We have received confirmation prior to going to court on Friday that the charges are now unconditionally withdrawn, therefore meaning that they can no longer be reinstated if we understand an unconditional withdrawal. A provisional withdrawal is a withdrawal which by its very nature implies that when there is further evidence arising out of an ongoing investigations, the charges can be re-enrolled. But our understanding as the proceedings in court on Friday, as they played out, there is confirmation, well in writing as well as what was placed on record, that the charges are withdrawn unconditionally.
Yeah. So this case was built around the appointment of Brigadier Dineo Mukwege. Evidence presented at the Madlanga Commission, which you mentioned as well, raises questions about whether she was actually qualified for this position. Does your client then believe the central premise of the case was fundamentally flawed from the beginning?
It was, as General Mkhwanazi put it in the evidence that was led at the Madlanga ad hoc, including my clients. It was purely an HR issue. But even on that HR issue, SAPS had conducted its own internal investigations and found that in terms of the systems and processes in place dealing with recruitment, there was no wrongdoing from the side of our clients. Our clients were simply appointed as members of a panel to conduct an interview. The candidates were vetted in terms of their qualifications, which, as we have seen from the Madlanga Commission, Smokwele met those requirements, interviewed, was a successful candidate, They recommended. They didn't employ her. They recommended, and the person responsible for employing officials within SABS will obviously then be the National Commissioner or his delegated officer.
When reflecting back to the Madlanga proceedings, Mr. Hlongwane, former IDEC head Andre Johnson also conceded that Mukwele was qualified for the role, while other evidence raised concerns about the investigation itself. What does that tell you about how this prosecution was put together?
This prosecution, as our clients have long held the view that it was unlawful to begin with. And then if you recall, that necessitated our clients to file complaints with the Minister of Justice as well as the Minister of Police that the actual commencement of the investigation, because the prosecution doesn't start overnight, there must be an investigation, and an investigation must be complete. Someone must consider that investigation reports or dockets and decide whether there is prima facie evidence. But what we saw at the Madlanga Commission exposed that the institutions at IDEC and the transparency and the independence that one would expect from IDEC, those did not happen, which resulted in this unlawful process that was undertaken against our clients.
Sihle Hlongwane is the lawyer representing Lieutenant-General Dumisani Khumalo following the formal withdrawal of those charges and corruption charges against his client and 6 other senior crime intelligence officials.